Oh, I forgot to actually get us in the game. Whoopsie, my bad. My bad. My bad, guys. I'm a little throw off my game, I guess. I can't believe it. Elden Ring is just a game. It's not actually me just live streaming my life. What is this lie I've been living this entire time, chat? What has been wrong with everything? I guess we'll do this one today. Okay, let's make sure that we're all set up. Okay, yeah, I think we got everything. Yeah. Oh, this one has this too. Okay, I forget that. Did you see the symbol that I was talking about last stream? That Way of Colors showed off? No, I did not. I did not get a look at it. I actually got myself distracted with other symbols because I was thinking about the upside down triangle and stuff, and some of them I thought was like, okay, there's like Pythagorean you know, philosophy. You can go into that with like the upside down triangle, equilibrium, perfect, harmony, balance, you know, that type of stuff. But what got me was the line in between it. So I was like, is that supposed to just represent like mathematical measurements, like trying to get it? Or is that something specific? Is it something from alchemy that I'm maybe not familiar with? So I got my thought, I'm like, maybe it'd be good if I just get a general like understanding of like alchemy, alchemical thought. Maybe someone else in the community has already explored those topics and everything like that. And I basically was thinking about going down that rabbit hole. Also, I have decided that I'm going to get myself a tablet with a keyboard attachment because I need to work outside away from my desk because it is going to be impossible for me to do my work and take care of this dog because she just requires, she needs to be outside. She needs to be doing things, especially now. Her heat came. So on top of everything else I've been dealing with and trying to get through to her, I now have to deal with her going into heat and keeping all those naughty boys away from my girl. I am going to be so miserable. Like today was actually not that bad. She was like yesterday she was a bit lethargic and I was like, oh, okay, was that because of the exercise I gave you the day before? And like, no, she's bleeding. Oh god. But today she was actually, she's not really bleeding that much today. She's generally calm, which that makes me nervous. It's, you know, I always think calm before the storm. I'm not ready for a storm when it comes to her. But yeah, so that's kind of like consuming so much of my thoughts that I haven't been able to do like as much as I would like to a lot of the time lately. But today I was able to get like a lot done just because she was like, oh my god, you're like being chill. But overall, yeah, I need to prepare. I need to get myself, it's gonna arrive and I think in a few days, so I need to get myself a tablet and stuff so then I can hook that up to my my PC monitor, you know, just kind of have it as like a remote monitor and work from outside and stuff while she's like running around doing stuff. I can watch her and things like that, especially during this, oh, this could go up for a month, chat. This is gonna be rough. There's also the little sun/sunflower on the top of the Golden Order sigil that reminds me of Gold Mask. Oh, really? I do not recall there being that specifically. Let me take a look at that before we get into this. Elden Throne, no. Well, we can go from this folder. Let's see. Demon Souls, no. Elden Ring. Graphics. Oh, no, it's under textures, right? I have it under textures. Where's the Principia? Huh? Huh? Did I misinterpret what you were saying, Xavier? Where is this? Where is this that you speak of? Please explain for my little pea-sized brain. Oh, is it like inside here, like this thing? Yeah, that... I can see that. Oh, that's not the one we want to look at. It's super tiny, yeah, because I didn't see it at first. I thought you meant like it would be like above it, but no, it's like it's in the triangle. Oh, I keep doing this stupid thing that... There we go. Nothing else really included. It's just kind of here. Right? I think what's most interesting is how they have it, the Elden Ring's kind of being measured, right? Within this concept. Because this makes sense, especially in terms of Radigan, this idea of perfect harmony, balance, the flesh and spirit. Like there's a lot of philosophy that goes into the equilateral triangle. But you know, it's obviously there's a resemblance to perfect order with the idea of like the straight and then the stick here for the cross, but then you have these angles. So there's a lot you can go into for this. I'm thinking of maybe adding it to Ratigan's Reign, because I do think some of it's pretty relevant in trying to get across the philosophy and stuff like that. You know, there's little eye holes in the mask. Yeah, I can kind of see it, right? Little bit there. And then it looks like just a bunch of like script or something, maybe runes, because it's kind of similar to the script they use down here. Oh, either way, yeah, it's neat. And there's definitely some stuff like alchemy wise, like for example, the idea of a gold, obviously gold, like, you know, being able to use the Philosopher's Stone to turn, like, you know, lead into gold, like that's like, you know, considered like the crowning achievement of the magnum opus that is alchemy, right? But I think what is most interesting to me is, you know, the idea that, okay, the gold is often represented by like a circle inside of another circle, or a dot within a circle, I think is to be more precise. Either way, the idea being that that is, of course, a symbol for gold, but it also symbolizes the sun. And similarly, silver's symbol is a crescent moon. So there's this idea of, you know, gold is associated with the day, the sun, you know, all that. And silver is associated with the moon and all that. And that, of course, that makes sense, you know, just kind of intuitively and stuff like that. But I find that very interesting in the context of Elden Ring specific, because obviously stuff like the Silvermen, the Albinaurics, are associated with Caria, right? And the, you know, the whole, you know, bunch of moon sorcerers and all that stuff. And then you have, of course, with Elden Ring, and you got like Lodale, Lodali, you got Lux Ruins, you got, of course, the Lyde which is supposed to be like obviously a pun on light. You got the Shaded Castle, which is, you know, the shade of like, you know, the sun and stuff like that. So like there's a lot going on there that I'm like, oh, I wonder, you know, it would always be useful if it helps like give us like something to like direct us on like lore, but I'm not expecting something like that. But I do wonder if it's something where it's like, oh, if, you know, if I understand some of these concepts a little bit more, I might be able to recognize like some of the ideas being expressed here and get maybe some of the thematic or like, you know, deeper, what's the word? Not really thematic, but, you know, just like maybe some of the kind of like subtext of some stuff there. Like you'll hear like Smotown and stuff have gone on about the Rebus, and I'm like, okay, yeah, cool, but can you tell me what that means in the context of Elden Ring? Like how does this idea of the Rebus apply to Marika and Ratigan here, right? What does it mean for them to be a Rebus then, in terms of how Ratigan exists within Marika? I wonder if I can maybe, you know, answer my own questions there if I had a better grasp of like, you know, the general alchemical concepts that Miyazaki might be referencing. Again, though, I've always told people external sourcing is not the way to understand lore. Understand lore within the context of the actual game itself. That is the, as you want, the crime scene with which you are going to solve the mystery. You are not going to solve the mystery of the case you're on by reading true crime novels of other things. They can be useful, they can be informative, they may be able to help you spot patterns, but ultimately you have to be able to spot those patterns because of the evidence within the actual crime scene. And that is where it is most important. Then the writing are Elden runes. I don't know about Elden runes because Elden runes seem almost specific. I think the biggest question is like, you know, what is the difference between an Elden rune, quote unquote, versus a Great Rune? Right? I wonder if there really is a difference. Like the Great Runes are just there because they're big runes, right? That are necessary for the Elden Ring as pieces, whereas Elden runes just are a generic term for the big, you know, major runes of the Elden Ring. I wonder if there's something like that going on. I don't remember if you actually... I do remember seeing Ratigan's rune in some depictions of the Elden Ring. I don't quite remember if Marika's is present. I think maybe at the top? It's been a while since I've looked at it, so a little fuzzy. They're like the same as the main menu Elden Ring. Oh, really? And the particle effects from Elden Beast, Ratigan, the Golden Order Great Sword. Oh, you think so? I'll have to pay attention next time we either fight those or look at a video on it. Anyway, I want to get started on this. I also have Shattering here. Can you guys actually see this one if I show it? No, it did not. Okay, let me, how about now? Okay, no, it still does not show. Okay, that's fine. But I have a thing on Shattering right now, and like I said, I might be able to actually get it shorter. I might not have to go into so much detail, but it's going to depend on how I string some of these ideas together, because I am hitting some points, because like I said, there's some discoveries and things. Like I'm working my thought process through on this, like the whole thorns of rejection thing. I think that is a very important factor into considering what's going on with Morgott and the Alliance and stuff like that. So I'm trying to, you know, kind of neatly, you know, write things to factor that in for the first draft. There's also some stuff that I kind of want to move for what's it called? For gladiators and things that I want to add and things like that, and just overall get some, like, I got a lot of like interesting little cut content thing from, like, they're technically, you know, they're technically cut stuff because they're like info pages that were like also included as part of descriptions for items that never got shown for armor and equipment in the end, right? But they're really fascinating in how revealing they are about some things and what the devs were thinking of. Like, you can clearly see an idea for Melania when the idea was going to be you have Melania and Miquella, like before they added the Mohg kidnapping subplot. So like this idea, like Melania being like Miquella's like, I think they used the term like arbitress, but like an arbitrator or a mediator, right? Like the person, like you want to get to Miquella, you have to go through Melania, right? Like she was the go-between, right? That was an interesting idea there. Also interesting thing on the Nox. I actually vaguely recall this from something else. I don't know if it was from this specifically or if I just kind of forgot some other aspect where this is mentioned in cut content, but the idea of the Nox as an Empyrean clan, which again is something that is going straight into the Eternal City stuff when we're talking about the connections to Plaki's god and stuff like that. Also very interesting the concept of the Hornset, who are also kind of treated as like an Empyrean clan, right? It's very interesting how Miyazaki's been playing with that word of like godmen, this idea of, you know, these idea of people who have the potential to become gods, and sort of like applying that to like an entire race of people. Which is obviously in Hornsane culture, this idea of like, you know, Empyrean, like being the idea of becoming like a vessel of a god, is a very interesting aspect because of how like their whole divine beast and possession and stuff happen. And then of course, in the context of the Nox, it'd be like, oh yeah, because the whole thing with Farum Azula and the Newman and all that. So again, I think it's all like good stuff. So I want to like add that and include that. I've also come to a realization about gladiators and things that I really want to, I was thinking of like, what's the word? I was thinking of maybe including it in something like Radagon's Reign, but I think it would probably overall be best if I save it for Godwyn and Death Prince and stuff like that. Because I just think like overall, like it's really cool and it's worth including there, I think, better. And plus I think I could flesh out the Death Prince a bit more, because I feel like he's definitely gonna be on the shorter side, but hey, I thought that about Shattering and it looks like it's gonna end up being a lot longer than I thought it was. So yeah. Currently in hiding from what I assume to be GE assassins after publishing my findings on Perpetual Motion. The jabronis really gotta work on their art. Good to see you, Nick. They're also a cut version of butterfly clones that were blue for nascent butterflies. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that was probably after Miquella was gonna give her like his abundance drops, right? Like he was gonna give her some of his sap. The idea, you know what? Now that I say that, the idea, you know, here he's like, oh yeah, she was gonna drink some of her brother's sap. It's like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't. But the entire idea that, you know, she was basically he was gonna give her a power up, and then she like, yeah, the idea that now her clones are gonna be like little like blue butterfly like things instead. Like, God, that there's so much, like there's just so much there. So much there. I think that covers most of the big stuff I wanted to talk about for the cut content, though. Like I said, it's unfortunately because of the dog and stuff like that. I was able to actually, you know, catch up a little bit today, but it's been very hard to like, you know, do work and everything with her now in heat. So, hopefully she won't get too crazy over the next month, at least before the tablet comes, because then at least I can be like, okay, I can watch you and like work and stuff like that. All right, let's get started on this thing because I do want to listen to this. This is very, very important to me. Yeah, we can close this. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm just saying, like, I'm having a lot of fun working on Shattering. Like, legitimately. I'm just enjoying it. I don't know what it is about Morgott specifically, but like, I think there's just something really, I don't know, I feel like there's something about Morgott that I think really like kind of brings a lot of the lore of this shattering stuff together in a like a really neat way, and it just connects it. Maybe it's because of my bias for Banished Knights, because I really like them in the lore too and how they bring things together. But I feel like you know, like the way Morgott intersects with so many factions in the history, I just feel like, you know, like we all like we've all criticized the shattering and stuff for being kind of underwhelming as like this big long full scale war between the demigods and all that stuff. But I do think it would be a lot less this entire like, you know, period in the history would be a lot less interesting without Morgott, for sure. Miquella stealing Marika's deal from sharing drops. Yeah, the whole, you know, Miquella and sharing like drops of I guess his pure gold life. I mean, it's supposed to be drops of abundance, so I guess the question is because like the nascent butterflies aren't necessarily connected to pure gold, so like that's actually a good question, is where does Miquella's abundance, quote unquote, affinity and powers and stuff source from in comparison to Malenia's rot, right? And he still, obviously, he still has a big thing on being gold and even pure gold, but that you could say that to all of them because they're demigods and stuff like that. Miquella just obviously doesn't have to worry about, you know, his gold getting tainted by anything. So his abundance, despite the blue coloration of nascent butterflies and stuff, is his abundance stuff still connected to gold, or is it something completely unrelated? He's a compelling character for sure. Yeah, I think what it is that I think it's the fact that you have essentially this guy who goes in the sewers. He's probably the only demigod in the Shattering who's actually fought for his life every day. Like, I think the only one that really comes close is probably Malenia, right? Like, obviously, you know, Radahn is doing it because he wants to, you know, he wants to be a hero and he wants to prove himself, right? So he's doing it for, you know, you know, the likes on Twitter. Not using the new name. Then you got like Malenia, who's completely into like, you know, fighting and showing her will to resist the rot and stuff like that. So like, I guess you can kind of say that's like, you know, fighting for your life, but it's not like, oh my god, if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. Especially considering that like a lot of what you know, a lot of her will to resist isn't actually like helping her resist the rot. It's more about like, you know, it's more about just determination stuff as Miquella tries to cure her rot and tries to hold the stuff back and everything, right? So like Morgott's the only one that really has basically kind of, you know, through pure merit been able to like show himself as why he's so successful in the war. Like everyone else is just like, I guess they're just uber talented and all their training paid off, that they were ready for the moment, as it were. Whereas Morgott, like, he's basically kind of lived to kind of like survive every day, just trying to make his way through life in these sewers, especially considering he has a like kind of this like rebellious streak in his history compared to how he is now. And then you go into like, you know, how he develops and stuff because of his love with the, you know, this tree, which he had only known for what, like maybe 6 years of his life, and like most of those like he probably doesn't even remember because he was a babu, right? So like it's something that's like very brief, and yet it leaves such a mark on him that he ends up, when encountering the formless mother, right, completely rejecting and sealing away and stuff like that. It's just like there's just like, you know, there's just so much like, you know, characterization and like tragedy there that is like very understated. And then like the way like he goes from being like this sewer rat to becoming like the king of Leyndell, and the way he tries to like then bring all the demigods together instead of like just becoming another person like trying to fight for the throne or whatever, and how he's legitimately invested. Then you got all the stuff with Godofra, Godofra, and the whole rebellion stuff in Stormvale, and his like brief history he has here, and then he brings back armies and stuff, which, as we went through earlier, will include like a slave unit with the Fallen Hawks and all that stuff. So like there's just like all that's adding an extra wrinkle stuff there. And then like he goes back and tries to restart the alliance, but then that quickly kind of devolves and falls apart because now you have like Godric and Radahn now like just everything just kind of like works so well for this period. Like it becomes this interesting little like political chess game between all these different factions and stuff like that, because Morgott's there trying to keep it all together, and he's like the most unconventional and unexpected person to actually be trying his damnness to save the Golden Order, right? Yeah, and like you say, there's a culmination of so many historical conflicts and lands between that are like coming together at this moment. Like Morgott, of course, comes from like the Omen and stuff like that. He isn't even around for a lot of this fundamentalism crap and everything like that. Like, so he's a bit of a boomer in this regard. Like he doesn't even recognize Radagon's symbol and stuff like that, right? He thinks the whole all the impenetrable thorns are because of the Erd tree itself. Doesn't realize that Radagon is the one, you know, not really puppeteering, as it were, but, you know, like he's the one that's actually behind these actions by the tree to create that Erd Tree avatar, as we see, and create those thorns, and just basically try to be a hindrance, right? And yet it seems that that action is what's essentially kind of deciding it, right? Because how are the demigods going to know when they've won the debate, as it were, in Morgoth's alliance, right? Where they're all meeting and trying to make their cases. Well, they're going to know when the Erd Tree responds, which is quote unquote listening to them there, and is actually going to release the thorns. Now, as we know, none of them ever does, so it just ends up dragging out this pointless debate and discussion between each other. If anything, you could argue that Radagon is purposefully like he's probably gleeful because he's being able to kind of inflame the tensions between Marika's children for the purposes of having them all fight together, so there are all none of them are united, and being able to potentially figure out what's actually going on and stand against him, and actually, you know, because again, Radagon's big goal is basically just making sure nobody becomes Elden Lord. Like, just stall at the clock, make it so that way eventually the Greater Will is going to have to accept him. You know, it's going to actually eventually forgive and accept him as the real Elden Lord, right? And then he can get back to his big plans for himself and his true self, and solving this issue and separating himself and going back to Rennala and like all this jazz, right? Like, so Radagon's obviously, like, his chief concern is just making sure that he could just continue to kind of like mess everything up until the Greater Will essentially comes to its senses, as it were. I already thought about Marika kicking his dad out and replacing with some guy. Again, Morgoth makes a point of how Morgoth's lore makes a point of how he quote unquote wasn't loved, and so he doesn't love. So I think Morgoth's probably doesn't really care what happens to Godfrey, because I think even though Godfrey clearly is very remorseful about what happened, I think Morgoth's trauma is essentially that he believes that his, you know, he had these parents which he thought loved him, and then their affections were so fickle that they, you know, threw him away and imprisoned him in the sewers like trash, right? And that seems to have left his mark, where essentially he essentially thinks that he was never actually loved, and so if nobody actually loved, then he won't love them, right? And the irony, of course, is that despite all that, he discovers that he truly does love the Erd Tree, and it's the one thing, like, it in its place of its parents has been this thing that's always been steady and unflinching in his life. It's never been in favor of him, but it's never been away from him, and it creates this kind of tragic cycle where he deep down really wants to be recognized by the Erd Tree, right? He wants to be the one, but as we get from his dialogue or whatever, you know, what was the line? Your deeds will be met with failure, like as were mine, or something like that. The JP is a bit simpler. It just says, like, you know, it's clear that the line was supposed to be part of his previous dialogue when you first talked about them, and they just kind of split it up arbitrarily. But like, it's very clear when it's talking about the idea that no one can become a Elden Lord, just like me, right? So it's making the point of like nobody can. I wasn't, and none of you will either, right? And it really kind of hammers home this idea that, you know, he's a little bitter about that, right? He doesn't blame the Erd Tree per se or whatever, but he just really wishes that, you know what, that thing that he loved about the Erd Tree, that it didn't like recoil or like overly praise or whatever, it just kind of stood there consistently, you know, unflinching. That's the same quality that he wishes it almost didn't have, because he deep down he really does want to be loved and treated and praised and given all those things, right? It's a very fascinating little psychological dilemma, right? Where you know, you want more despite the fact that you're happy with just getting something so simple, right? It's that idea, you know, I didn't need much, you know, I just needed, you know, you to be there or something like that, right? Well, it's like, well, what happens when you want someone to do more than just be there for you? What happens when you want someone to, you know, actually be able to kind of return those positive feelings that you're developing and stuff like that? And again, I just think that Morgoth as a character is just such a fascinating little thing that really kind of makes the whole shattering episode actually like a lot more interesting than it would be otherwise. And I think that there's definitely a lot of, you know, kind of tragedy in that, like, you know, his emotions and feelings with his parents never really get resolved, right? He doesn't ever get like actual closure there. At the same time, I find it interesting how he seems to at least show, if not love, but responsibility for Mohg, since he seems to still like have at least a relationship where like they're working together and stuff. You can argue about the Fell twins, but definitely in the case of the what's it called, the Forsaken Cathedral and stuff like that, with the Guardian to the what's it called, to the I forget what the name is, but you know, basically the catacomb tomb for all the Three Fingers and the nomadic merchants. Anyway, let us get to this already. I'm enough of my gushing. I want us to be able to listen to how this came out, see if it's any good. Oh, I better restart this from the beginning because...
Something wicked. After Godwyn's Erdtree burial, Marika came to the fateful decision: destroy the Elden Ring. The Night of the Black Knives was the trigger for this event, so it must have occurred within the ensuing days or weeks. Laying the Golden to rest may have therefore been Marika's last major act as queen. The god took her opportunity to mourn and then proceeded with her madness, as Runny frames it. It was obviously impulsive and certainly beggars belief. A god destroying the basis for her godhood is counterproductive, to say the least. In that sense, it does speak to Marika's mental state, but not so far that she lost logical faculties. The Mischief Maker has always been prone to extreme bouts of passion in her capriciousness. Rather, the god queen no longer counted her hold on power among her priorities in her decision-making. Her self-destruction was doubtless intentional, since she continues to work toward her death after the fact according to Hyuk. Barring a random lapse in acuity, Marika should be acting deliberately this entire time, in which case any change ties back to the trigger. Up until now, the Eternal Queen has always chosen between her kin and her power, the latter taking precedence. Beyond selfish wants, Marika could argue that it was better for the whole if she, and thereby they, retained positions as royals. At the same time, this ruthless pragmatism came at great personal cost, throwing the god into lasting emotional turmoil. By the end, we see that she had chosen to maintain the status quo in spite of 3 new threats emerging since the Glowmide Queen. Based on past history, Marika would be well within rationale to eliminate these Empyreans before they caused more death. At the very least, the lack of any preemptive measures suggests that Marika was shifting to prioritize her children even if it risked creating another incident like the god hunts. Maybe she believed that treating them without fear would negate the risk. If she was just a better mother, no one had to die. She even advises them in the event that fate did lead them to replace her. The Eternal Queen was ready to lay down her mantle, worn down by time and knowledge. And the result? Betrayal once again. Indeed, Marika may not have known the exact perpetrators, but it was plain to any observer. The assassins couldn't have pulled off the Night of Black Knives alone. To coordinate an operation of that scale, they needed detailed insider knowledge, the kind available only to the royal house. Once more, Marika was dealing with a crisis of kinslaying which she was ill-equipped for. The person or persons involved weren't immediately apparent, and tracing the assassin proxies might also prove difficult. But no matter how anyone looked at the circumstance, someone from within the clan had definitely betrayed them. This cast a shadow over the entire funeral process. Any demigod in Leyndell who came to mourn the deaths may be a snake in the grass, no one may voice it aloud, but it was sure to be on the mind, especially Marika's thoughts. And in those final days of her reign, what thoughts would stew? Why her children would do this, of course, not to mention where she went wrong with this decision. But ultimately, these questions would boil down to a central point. Why was she putting up with all this? She chose power because she believed it was for the best, long term. But time and time again, it brought her pain and sorrow. At some point, she had to question how many of her beloved kin needed to die before it outweighed the value of her reign and the legacy her golden order would leave. When was ruling an empire meaningless? Marika's answer came with Godwyn and the others' deaths. Melina recounts the queen's words at the Erdtree, calling Radagon a dog of the Golden Order before determining they break something, obviously the Elden Ring she shattered. This was the madness wrought in the aftermath of Godwyn's death. Once turned to introspection, Marika's sadness and rage might be redirected, not at the conspirators, but at the agents behind them. It was the Fingers who kept selecting new candidates to replace her as god, dooming their family to a fate of competition for order. It was that greater will who wouldn't let her simply enjoy the kingdom she had built with her beloved children. It was this Elden Ring, with its fate of gold, that doomed her to the path of kinslaying, slowly eroding at her mind until she finally snapped. Since the queen faces interference from Radagon as well as the Two Fingers after the deed is done, there was no thought-out plan for escaping the aftermath. In her heart, she resolved to see it all destroyed, her empire, her reign, her very life. Some fans have argued that Marika's act was actually part of a larger scheme, with the Night of the Black Knives secretly orchestrated by her. This is due to the Black Knife armor's description, highlighting a theory that she bare close ties with the Newman. However, the idea falls apart under further scrutiny. While the women may be close to Marika, this intimacy only demands familiarity. The church at Sellia showcases the god's past presence, where she might well have personally met many of the future assassins during the integration period, a passing acquaintance, bonding as members of the same race. In fact, the specific wording may simply allude to the queen's own Newman connections, intimate with her shaman village, and thus arguably the people as a whole. In either case, there is no need for her to know the assassins well enough to stage a conspiracy. And whether it was mere psychological affinity as kindred or something more, Marika was still the intended, if indirect, target of these godslayings, the person whom the plotters held animus against. Why help them harm her? Indeed, the Eternal Queen scheming to murder her own children serves no discernible end. If she wanted them dead, that was the point of Malekith, death of the demigods without all the complicated subterfuge. If she ordered the hit, she didn't target the Empyreans who threatened her hold on power, nor did so many deaths change her access to the Elden Ring she subsequently shattered. From whichever angle you take, none of it is conducive to her own implication in the treason against her. Runny and the conspirators clearly sought to bring her distress with these killings, yet she's the one somehow setting them up without their apparent knowledge. Taking it all into consideration, the theory concerning Marika's relation to the assassins serves as indication of the personal motive behind the killings, more than a mere political statement. The actual shattering of the Elden Ring was so-called madness, the ultimate crime of passion from an impulsive, whimsical god, and nothing more. With that in mind, Marika's sin was a crime of opportunity. None would criticize the queen for drawing into seclusion, nor would any raise eyebrows at her bringing her hammer inside the tree where she tinkered with the ring. The queen's random absence was odd, but understandable for most. Her resolve was also kept secret from Radagon, as he tries to stop her but apparently lacked the time or foreknowledge to bring others for help. Instead...
Hate that you have to even include that. Okay. In fairness to everyone saying that, I think it is a good point. It is worth discussing because it is something. I feel the same way when it comes to the Great Tree theory, stuff like that. Now, yes, would I prefer if the localization never did the silly thing of making a capitalized big G Great Tree that is one word? Yes, I would have preferred that. It would have been so much simpler if they just kind of called it just casually the Great Tree or something like that, or even just as a separate word and just maybe capitalized as like the Great Tree and stuff like that. And this would be so much simpler in all those instances, but they did not. And so we have to deal with a legitimate question about the idea of is, okay, is this Great Tree actually referring to the Erd Tree, or could it be referring to something else? And as I've said before, I see nothing in the text that make you think that, but that's something worth addressing, of being like, yeah, there's nothing in the text that would tell you necessarily, and there's nothing in the environment that would support that. Same thing here. I think that when you go through all the scenarios with Marika and stuff like that, it just makes no sense no matter how you look at it. But in fairness, that is a line that would be, by itself at least, worth looking at. And it's just something where it's like, I can see why people come to that conclusion. It is something that is popular enough, big enough, and understandable enough that I think it is worth addressing. So that is kind of where I stand on, you know, that. Do I think that it's silly? Yes, but I think fair enough, it is something that is worth kind of, you know, giving people, you know, throwing a bone to these, you know, theorists, and be like, yes, here is my point about that and why I think you're wrong. We do so. The person both plotters held animus against. Indeed. Okay, there we go. No, ultimate crime pet. Yeah, okay, there we go. Let's go back to the opportunity part.
With that in mind, Marika's sin was a crime of opportunity. None would criticize the queen for drawing into seclusion, nor would any raise eyebrows at her bringing her hammer inside the tree where she tinkered with the ring. The queen's random absence was odd, but understandable for most. Her resolve was also kept secret from Radagon, as he tries to stop her but apparently lacked the time or foreknowledge to bring others for help. Instead, he alone attempts to hinder her as she is breaking the Elden Ring, wresting control of her body in a desperate bid to repair the damage with her same hammer. One can only imagine the king's bemusement at his wife's suspicious absence without communication, then horror to discover her destroying their golden order. The man theoretically possessed the strength to overpower her physically with a body double, but the nature of their connection meant that Marika might have deprived him of that option. Ultimately, Radagon's only hope to stop this madness was to take the reins over their shared body. But that was easier said than done in his circumstances. As seen in the introductory cutscene, this resulting back and forth between them continued at almost rhythmic pace. However, the cinematic teaser trailer indicates that Radagon's efforts were futile. Even as he slammed the hammer to mend the ring falling to pieces on its pedestal, some of those strikes weren't weaving runes back into place, their body cracking more and more with the gold instead. It is clear that Radagon wasn't consistently in control even when managing to switch their bodily form. Marika was still directing a number of his own strikes into smashing their Elden Ring, so any mending on the Elden Lord's part was far outnumbered by the damage they both were doing. Looking at the cinematic, the great runes cracked and cracked until finally they shattered apart, one after the other. At the same time, the fissures in Marika and Radagon's own body were widening with each malicious strike. With the struggle tearing themselves apart in every sense, mitigating the damage Marika had already wrought was a losing battle. Add in her last words to him, the other half asserted herself as the real god, not him. Try as he might, the stubborn Newman refused to let a lowly dog decide her fate, and that was that. Going by the teaser, with his last swing, Radagon shattered the ring, Marika, and he collapsing to their knees as their order completely fell apart. The former looks up, almost liberated, in this moment, while the latter just coils down in despair. Both knew how this changed everything, beyond just their body, which we see break apart when entering Radagon's boss battle, especially on their left side. The golden era of fundamentalism was crumbling to dust right in front of them. Before that, we see a flash of light, which the hammer's description defines as a kind of shock. Certainly, the force of shattering the whole collection of runes into pieces has left the weapon deeply entrenched in the arboreal pedestal. Radagon can only remove the weapon with great effort, destroying the pedestal along with it. The reaction force was so strong, it partially shattered the hammer, with splinters of the ring filling the cracks. Those same fragments of gold appear to be holding the broken pieces of hammer together, albeit it is invisible until Radagon draws the power out, the runes resonating with the gold of his fractured body upon the boss grabbing the hilt. However, it is that same power allowing the heroic lord to perform his signature move as the weapon skill, turning it effectively into a holy catalyst. The fact that the hammer can be used in this way speaks to the power the stone was manipulating and had now unleashed with the shock. The effects upon the world outside were immediate. The introductory cutscene features the Erd Tree exploding with golden power after the ring broke, the force creating waves in the ocean all the way over in Limgrave. This power appears to have been concentrated in the air, with no obvious signs of lasting damage on Leyndell. Nevertheless, this outburst is likely the basis for Wrath of Gold, which the most devoted members of the faithful like Kenneth or Edgar soon adopted in prayer. No one across the lands between seems to have gone unaware of the Erd Tree's plight either, with the gold afterward never again achieving the same soothing radiance as the old tree. As the narrator admits from the outset, the falling leaves tell the whole story, the Erd Tree slowly dying as its ring at the source remains broken. Those tarnished leaves flow on the air all the way down to Limgrave, with strong gusts carrying all the more, still rich with power, to any corner of the land sporadically. The message they silently carry would be clear to everyone. The order was fractured and figuratively bleeding out. Granted, the Erd Tree was more concerned with its own mortality than getting out a message. Like back when the Crucible effectively perished, the dying tree reflexively released seeds, which we see have taken root as phantom trees, some even finding their way deep underground or high in the sky. Those seeds which didn't land on Earth end up carried on the sea, one washing ashore in our home region to become a potential keepsake. The sheer number of these new trees exceeds the minor Erd Trees by double digits, so we can infer that the Erd Tree considered this incident that much more dangerous. This time, the vitality drained from it might actually be fatal. It is because of that possibility that the Erd Tree wills its existing progeny be protected, hence the Erd Tree avatars born beneath each of their canopies. With a staff to cast incantations and reserves of the old Crucible strength, they stand as guardians against any outside threat. Conversely, the old guardians have been punished with arboreal transformation for breaking their contract, even if that was arguably outside their control. Much of the same took place in the realm of shadow. The Skadu tree experienced a similar outburst of power which worshippers captured as an incantation, the name and ranged effect of this wrath from after reflecting their understanding of the true source of the shock. Because the Erd Tree's shadow is so frail and twisted, this shockwave appears to have caused real harm to said shadow. Unlike its golden counterpart, the statue tree broke from within, scattering countless small fragments across the entire realm, not to mention the many larger fragments which simply fell and litter the tree's base. Among the wreckage was also born the statue tree's own avatar, a legless, humanoid shadow sunflower mirroring the tree's crooked form in contrast to the headless, walking trees in the lands between. When slain, another sprouts up in its place, the same boss seeming to regrow its form from the roots. Otherwise, the persistent avatar relies more heavily on thorns to keep threats away. In fact, for a tree already twisted by dark thoughts, death from a friend doubtless came at little surprise. Meanwhile, the cause of death didn't escape punishment. Even if she ultimately won out in the Battle of Wills, Marika still ended up captured for her actions. The one doing the capturing was presumably the Elden Ring itself. When grabbed by the Elden Beast, we find ourselves crucified in a similar manner to Marika, hanging from a rune arc as a multitude of golden spears run us through from all angles, culminating in a collective explosion. In the Eternal Queen's case, she has only one spear stabbed through her right side, an apparent reference to the spear of Longinus in Christ's crucifixion. This golden spear has a more reddish hue like the crucible, suggesting that it is an especially dense concentration of power, maybe necessary to keep a god suppressed. Unlike in our case, the intent wasn't to kill Marika, per se, but prevent her from acting independently. Despite everything, she remains the ring's host, thus is left suspended.
All right, so I'm gonna just say this because I do think that it's worth noting. I get it what they're trying to go for overall with, like, you know, it's like Morgoth basically, you know, Morgoth's basically, you know, secured the plateau. There's not really a big threat besides us, of course, to Leyndell or anything like that. But I do find it absolutely hilarious that they couldn't be bothered to actually close the gates. Like, come on. Actually, now I have to ask myself, are there gates on the other side? Oh, I don't think there are. Ooh, I don't remember mentioning that in Godric or Radahn. I'm gonna have to go back and double check that, because I think depending on how I worded that, I might want to include reference to that, be like, because that was always like a point I made. It's like, how exactly do they get in? There doesn't seem to be any damage to this wall or anything like that. But now, oh yeah, that makes sense though. The idea was like they just kind of burst in. Though again, it's kind of silly we don't get to see the doors if that's the case, because I feel like that would have stood out if they actually had them there. Anyway, my point is, I find it funny how easy it was for us to just basically get through because they left the door open. Like, come on, guys. Like, I get it. You have all this stuff here, but you couldn't bother to shut the door? Whatever. Back to this.
Midair in probable pain to suffer while deprived of agency. One might question why the Elden Beast didn't act sooner if restraining the Queen was so easy. Marika's hammer looks untouched since the ring shattered, while Marika herself hangs directly before it, Radagon ready to pull the hammer from the wood immediately after dropping to the floor practically on top of it. By all indications, no sooner did the Eternal Queen succeed in breaking the ring that the ring itself responded with swift and decisive action, arresting her on the spot. If so, then defending itself preemptively should have been simple. However, this is with the benefit of hindsight. Had Radagon succeeded in stopping Marika, there would be no reason for the Beast of Order to step in. This wasn't the first time the ring had been subject to tampering, and it was for the god to decide. Before the sinful action was completed, the Elden Beast defaulted to wait and see. But the sin was indeed committed, and it is likely for that reason that Radagon shares in Marika's punishment. He was the one who failed to reign in his other half, making him just as guilty in Gold's eyes. As her better angel, the so-called dog shouldered the burden during that fateful moment, and the Elden Lord fell miserably short of the Order's faith in him. As a result, it has stepped in to discipline them both, though the Elden Beast still seems to entrust the man with certain responsibilities. While holding them captive, the ring nestles itself inside Marika and Radagon's broken shell of a body, its shadowy manifestation holding the crumbling husk together as the Hero King battles on its behalf. It is only after failing it again, losing to us in battle, that the Elden Beast rises from the shadows, literal and metaphorical, once more. We can therefore infer the Beast responsible for the crucifix arc fracturing, so that Radagon can be freed to fight just as we enter. Clearly, it trusts Radagon's ability to keep his other half suppressed and defend what is left of the Order.
Oh, another thing to note about the grab is that you're pierced by one large single spear first, exactly like Marika for a moment, for all the other ones stab. Yeah, that might be another point worth emphasizing then. So I'll have to remember to include that in the next draft.
In this moment. Besides rising to the occasion for the final battle, Radagon also appears to be granted a greater degree of agency in captivity. It is his Elden Rune which manifests alongside the impenetrable thorns of rejection blocking the way inside the Erd Tree, implicating him in blocking anyone from accessing the ring or Marika. There is also the curious case of an Erd Tree avatar manifesting in Leyndell. The main tree protecting itself with an incarnation isn't unprecedented, another patrolling down in the deep root depths. But this avatar just so happens to occur as we traverse the main street, with no other overt impetus for appearing. Moreover, it is born already carrying a Lord's Rune, meaning that such power was sourced from the Erd Tree. In other words, the second Lord most likely lent his power to the avatar's creation, making a proxy with which to challenge us as we, the most successful Tarnished, make our way dangerously close to his location. Radagon holds significant sway over the Erd Tree from his place inside it, using the giant medium to monitor events outside and respond accordingly. Taken altogether, Radagon is still considered an ally to the Order, and so not restricted to the same extent as Marika. The Elden Beast prefers using the King Consort as its agent while it focuses on suppressing the God Queen, which appears largely successful. Beyond supposed communications with certain characters in the outside world, she takes no substantial actions, not even to resist captivity. The way her stone body hangs, the woman almost resembles a corpse, with references to a dead Marika in the game files suggesting that such was the developer's intention. Ironic as it was for a woman who imposed the same kind of justice, her crucifixion represented the death of God in any meaningful sense. From that point on, the fate of the Order and the world it regulated would be decided by her next nominal partner, the Elden Lord. She has become simply host to that future.
I also want to mention that, like I said before, I want to talk more about like the crucifixion and how there's a lot you can look at as like sort of Marika's self-punishment as much, like kind of like this idea that godhood became this burden, right? So she sort of embodies this idea of Christ, the suffering servant, in that regard, where she's like not so much dying for everyone else's sins, but dying for her sins, right? So there's kind of like that twisted take on it, right? This idea that the god must die for God's own sins. And in that respect, I think that is something that is worth including in Erdtree's beginning when talking about like sort of Marika, her order and stuff. I also feel like I don't focus enough when it comes to her order about this idea that Marika creates an order of life and how that affects the immortality and stuff. I don't think I ever really talked about that too much in that article when I did the update. And I can understand because like I myself was not like 100% on exactly where to draw the line on all that stuff, but I think it becomes clear looking at interviews, looking at what we have in game, that basically the idea is that when Marika took out the shadow from her gold, when essentially the rune of death was removed from the Elden Ring to create the Golden Order, Marika basically made it where not of course herself and her progeny especially, but everyone would basically be able to have the runes of gold, and the runes of gold would essentially be able to extend to everybody's life, and runes are unique to people of the lands between, so everyone else in the world might have normal lifespans and stuff like that. The people in the lands between have extended lives, which is the explanation for why we have stuff like Crucible Knights who are still alive and stuff like that. Like all these figures who should be theoretically long dead are in fact still alive. I also kind of want to go back to like the DLC and just kind of confirm a few things, because I don't know if we see that many hollows per se. Now Mesmer's forces might count as that. I have to go back and like check like their skin and stuff like that, see if they got like a kind of zombie look to them. But like overall, I don't think that gets as much attention in the DLC, right? This like this hollowing happening because of like the curse or whatever. But I feel like this we're going to talk about it later, but I feel like I might want to focus on that too when it comes to the Shadow Tree and how everyone reacts to it, because like I think it's more than just obviously the Shadow Tree and the rumors and stuff. I think the fact that there's this hollowing curse that's suddenly happening for everybody, it'd be like the undead curse in Dark Souls, right? Like it's suddenly you had this like faithful country or whatever, and suddenly like undead curse and stuff is happening. Like you're not keeping that under wraps. Like you have to have an explanation for why it's suddenly happening and what it all means, right? So I feel like that's all worth mentioning. Anyway, now to move on to this next section. So far though, so good. I'm very happy with how this is coming together. This feels very tight, surprisingly.
But a walking shadow. Through Enia, the Two Fingers claims that breaking the Golden Order is an unforgivable error, delivering an appropriate comeuppance. This takes the form of the world and life therein, once blessed by the Order's grace and fortune, now running rampant with curses and misfortune. While the Fingers doesn't elaborate, we can surmise the specifics through our travels. Most of the living we encounter look zombified, their skin discolored despite the gold in their eyes. This isn't just a matter of artistic license, as various item descriptions identify such enemies as the dead Muja in particular. Different from Shisha, used in reference to routine corpses or those living in death, this term for the dead identifies spirits of the deceased who have strayed from the path of nirvana and continue wandering the underworld in Buddhism. To that point, one of the imp heads captures the Muja as the faithful interred in catacombs, devoting life and limb to the Erdtree. They're supposed to be resting, readying their return to golden rapture, not moving about. Would that not fit a broken order of life? Indeed, descriptions to the aristocrat set clarify that the Muja aren't truly the dead, but products of an unending life. Because they have persisted for so long without dying, they continue to operate in the world even as their vessel of flesh begin to expire. They still count among the living, but their bodies aren't aging so much as deteriorating. Death itself appears to actually be a difficult concept for them. Using the aristocrats as an example, we find an array in the dragon-burnt ruins of Agheel Lake, absent-mindedly staring up at the sky where the eponymous dragon first flies in. Evidently, the fire-breathing menace destroyed the settlement, and from their begging, they want Agheel to return and finish the job, burn up everything including themselves. It is fitting for a dragon named Aegir, after the Kurdish word for flame, but there is little sense in immolation by dragon unless they've both given up on life and are unable to end it with a more straightforward method. If you cannot enjoy an ordinary demise, then being instantly reduced to ashes might be preferable. This implies Muja to be more a kind of undead, the flesh willing, but the spirit intransigent. This survival past termination is multifaceted. Speaking with Patches in Murkwater Cave, we learn that local highwaymen let the thief lodge there as a guest in exchange for looking after them in turn, later roping the band into procuring his inventory to sell. By his own admission...
What is that? Oh, speaking with Okay, I heard speaking of Patches. Okay, so... Okay, let's just go.
Put simply, most human enemies. This survival past termination is multifaceted.
There we go.
Speaking with Patches in Murkwater Cave, we learn that local highwaymen let the thief lodge there as a guest in exchange for looking after them in turn, later roping the band into procuring his inventory to sell. By his own admission, he doesn't understand a word they say, just matching wavelengths in his words. This is odd when everyone else from the lands between is intelligible, at least whenever they deign to chat. The only thing stand out about the highwaymen's circumstances is that they appear zombified and are former soldiers who, in Patch's estimation, were overworked by their superiors only to be thrown out like trash. True enough, we see corpse piles rotting in the valley outside the cave, indicating that they were among the bodies, but didn't stay dead. After getting dumped down there, the dead got back up, took shelter in the nearby cave, and turned to highway robbery to get by. In short, the major difference is already returning from death. Put simply, most human enemies, while nominally alive, suffer from physical and mental degeneration, reducing them to mindless husks. At their worst, these individuals may be able to follow simple instructions or perform ingrained habits, but cannot perform much in terms of higher critical thinking. They become little better than golems, though loss of cognitive function should theoretically exist along a gradient before reaching that point. After all, the underlying cause is time alive, but we see exceptions. A common sentiment in the commoner set's descriptions is that there are no decent commoners left, yet Gostock converses eloquently in spite of sharing their withered look. The same be said for text to the Ryle Icarian robe, Academy sorcerers forgetting their vows when receiving that uniform like anyone else with a long life. That, once again, hasn't stopped Thops from remaining lucid even isolated from the others. There are sure to be complicating factors varying between individuals, leading to some losing sanity faster than others. Muja aren't guaranteed empty shells. Based on the Highwayman's example, it is death that universally accelerates this mental degradation, which explains why we can witness groups continue to behave sentient with social cohesion in select scenarios. They have yet to die, at least enough to become mental invalids. This gives the nobles in Dragonburnt ruins added incentive for extreme measures like a guild to do them in anything less might just lead to more quickly losing their minds. To become Muja is a kind of existential horror where one comes to meander the world as little more than a monster, devoid of self yet driven by instinct. All of this is appropriate given that the same term was previously used for soul-starved hollows, the basic enemies of demon souls and dark souls. Because all three iterations share many of the same degenerative traits, I will refer to Muja as hollows in this context as well going forward. Although the return of hollows for basic enemies in a From Software title is hardly accidental, they are still distinct in their relationship to the dead. As noted earlier, hollows technically classify as the living despite appearing corpse-like, but that doesn't mean that they can't manifest from among the dead as well. The rotten corpses, so often rising from graveyards and body piles across the lands between, are also expressly rotted hollows, their time spent thoroughly eaten up by grumbles of maggots before life returned them to their feet. That may imply that some hollows revive slower than others, but whether they be the recent or long dead, these rotten hollows are just as much affected as those who have never died. In the latter cases, they seem to rise up because their rest has been disturbed, typically appearing where their burial chambers are flooded. This isn't surprising with Erdtree burial proving elective, both Kristoff and Little's examples postdating the Broken Order. If the long-lived can choose when to rest, then the long-dead can choose when to live again. Soggy soil isn't the only thing rousing the dead from slumber. Joining hollows in those flooded graves are crawling carrion, mounds of rotten flesh squirming on the floors and occasionally ceilings. By all appearances, they are pieces of different dead amalgamated into a singular mass of meat. The resulting enemy doesn't appear to have a brain or individual identity, though they are clearly motivated by some collective will. In all likelihood, that will is resentment against the living. Outside of waterlogged areas, we witness the enemy in places where victims might suffer especially grievous deaths, the personal injustice sure to stew strong sentiments within souls. That grudge gets passed onto the flesh, pieces pooling together based on that shared feeling. It doesn't take long for them to lash out either. Left exposed to the elements, the resentful flesh soon assimilate the scavengers which come to pick the carrion, wildlife bones and feather wings mixed in. Indoors, they are just feasted on by maggots, though they still retain thin and hefty beast bones somewhere inside. They are alive and wrathful. Due to the underlying cause, this curse of life only affects humans with gold gracing their eyes. However, this doesn't mean that the curse can't be passed on to other living beings. Although we don't witness most animals out in the wild exhibiting signs of physical degeneration, this doesn't include crabs. Among the various types we encounter, one is just the standard crab with a body hollowed out by maggots, no different from the human rotten hollows. We can presume that this is because they eat the dead's flesh, you are what you eat, as the saying goes. Indeed, the Black Knife Catacombs have no hollows in its flooded chamber, just countless crabs big and small feasting on the grave soil, all maggoty. Contrast to Wyndham Catacombs, where only two giant crabs dwell in its own flooded chamber, both still ordinary even as they feed from the same dirt. The major difference is that most of the dead there have yet to be scavenged, rotten hollows and crawling carrion lingering alongside them. This strongly suggests that feeding too much on the living dead results in the crustaceans inheriting the curse. As the final nail in the coffin, we can only encounter a hollow crab in one other location. In front of Castle Morn, we can find a mass crucifixion on an outcrop, bodies repeatedly left out there until they perish and rot off their posts, into the water pooling beneath under the constant rain. This has poisoned the pool over time, as well as freed the rotten hollows to shamble about, with poisoned carrion crawling there with them. While the trees of the surrounding forest died to the stagnant waters infested with all sort of mucilage and maladies, this rot is apparently still too recent to kill off the bushes and grasses. And what do we see has buried itself in the poison pool? Another of these pest-ridden giant crabs. This leaves no reason to doubt a connection between the dead and the crabs feeding off them, whether it be from the rotten flesh directly or the worms feasting on that same flesh. The same holds true for domesticated creatures. The various dogs we encounter throughout our journey all look deathly thin, with the ribcage partially exposed. Inconsistent as this is with wild beasts, their overall unnatural state isn't so odd, considering their circumstances. We do often find strays feasting on human bodies, with pet canines brought to military camps and the like as obvious warhounds. Both examples are liable to have enjoyed a steady diet of hollows, inheriting the hollowing in turn. If nothing else, this confirms that the zombified appearance isn't limited to life of white flesh and blood. The only animals implicitly immune to this phenomenon, in fact, seem to be the land octopuses, who channel the humans they eat into their ovaries for the birth of their brood. But that is a quirk of their peculiar evolution, most beasts not adapted to a human diet specifically. If more beasts regularly resorted to man-eating, they too would probably suffer the same fate as the dogs and crabs. Not even humans from outside the lands between are safe for consumption. The fact that sailors who wash ashore and don't get gobbled up by octopuses first are hollow proves that any who make landfall will immediately receive the curse of life, dead or alive. And what buoys their ended lives say for the golden runes universal to all the enemies we may defeat? Just like said enemies, those rotten sailors can sometimes retain profuse gold in their eyes, providing fivefold the typical number of runes. Cut text for the commoner set likewise describes the hollows as cursed by runes. Even weakened, the Erdtree continues to shine and spread runes to the inhabitants of every corner of the lands. It doesn't matter if you're a half-rotten corpse brought in with the tides like Flotsam, you are still worthy of the grace of gold. The result is that every person who touches ground is subject to an unending life, warped as it has become. The sailors desperate to reach the lands between now never no rest as they meander the beaches with maggoty insides. Gold's blessing has truly become a curse. False face must hide. With all these developments in the wake of the ring shattering, no one in the lands between could ignore the situation. Some, like the citizens of Lanedal, remain steadfast. Even with the great tree glowing darker than before, the phantom holy seal in the Erdtree crest's form holds just as much potency for the faithful. This alone is enough to lift the spirits of those worshippers. Granted, some of their faith borders on delusional. Even after we successfully burn the Erdtree and turn Lanedal into an ashen capital, a commoner's spirit sitting exhausted on the cinders nonetheless laughs that they are yet a golden people. All because the tree technically remains standing. Many are simply clinging to the world of gold that remains, regardless of malfunctions in its current order. For them, it is unimaginable to think that the Erdtree could ever enter a truly dying state. Others are much more sober-minded, such as the citizens of the Woodfolk ruins recording Wrath of Gold in their Erdtree mania. Even then, that pious settlement might have been taking the incident in stride. Those with weaker devotion instead see themselves falling into despair, especially when there are still other threats like the Flame of Frenzy. At the Purified Ruins, Site P, many receive the plague of madness in their eyes. But the spirit of one commoner there encourages everyone to come out of the dark underground and offer up their afflicted eyes to a finger maiden. Sure enough, searching the ruins, we see that the requisite basement has been boarded up, with no candles to light the place. Down there, a Shabriri grape can be looted off the ground next to the chest containing the Two Fingers heirloom. Factored all together, Two Fingers worshippers at Site P converted to Three Fingers worship following their affliction, practicing their new faith in the shadows so that outsiders wouldn't notice. They no longer saw hope in this broken world, so turned to the outer god promising to wipe the slate clean and spare them any more suffering. Such communities were ill-equipped for this apocalyptic scenario. Some saw the early warning signs with the falling leaves and reacted accordingly. The Dry Leaf Sect, or Fallen Leaf Sect, to be more precise, began with its first members witnessing the Erd Tree's decline before their eyes and deciding to prepare for the fluctuations in the Golden Order to follow. Their answer to the coming crisis was to impose a strict faith upon themselves, this new sect in Erd Tree religion embracing asceticism of the highest austerity. Part of this is foregoing weapons, which can always chip or break when you least expect it and require expensive repairs. In their place, they use their hands and fists, developing a martial art which combines striking with the palm or kicking with the leg into a free-flowing combat style that channels the user's chi just like Lifesteal Fist. In fact, this weapon's palm blast skill is more accurately rendered as power discharge, evoking Fa gene from Chinese martial arts. With this, it becomes apparent that the sect follows in the footsteps of peoples living to the far east of the lands between. Indeed, the entire sect takes obvious inspiration from Asian Buddhism. The Dry Leaf set, while unambiguously Western garb, bears a silhouette reminiscent of traveling Buddhist monks in the East. Dane, or Dan, likewise learned his flowing kick arts by training under waterfalls, the force of the freezing water disciplining his body, and mind to eventually throw himself at them like a sparring partner. While teaching his legs how to flow heavy like the crashing streams, such training is also consistent with stereotypical ascetic practices of Buddhist warriors and monks, with more kick-focused martial arts from Japan like Kyokushin karate bearing history with such extreme exercises. Even the related skill, Dry Leaf Whirlwind, is a pun on wind speed, more literally meaning wind foot. Furthermore, the Dry Leaf sect are all path seekers searching for the way to the ultimate truth, in other words, enlightenment. These ascetics treat navigating the Erd Tree like finding nirvana. Suffice to say, the Dry Leaf sect prepares body and soul for the harshest circumstances in the era ahead, whether that means enduring the troubles or fighting back. This was their way of securing the faith, adapting to the signs the Holy Erd Tree provided them rather than fall into despair or delusion. They take a distinctly different approach to religion from the priests and laity attending church services around the lands between, which we see have largely fallen by the wayside as the various church buildings fall to ruin from disrepair or other factors in the current political climate. This makes the sect self-sufficient, though members are still expected to meet the highest standards of etiquette in their austerity. They may be warrior monks of a sort, but their sect focuses on dealing with the predictable turmoil, not adding to it. In that sense, refusing more lethal weapons is a means to discourage preying on the weak, resorting to their strength with chi only for truly just causes or self-defense. But an ascetic's life is, by its nature, unappealing for the majority. Most just wanted to go about their lives, same as before. But there was clearly no going back, even if details about the Elden Ring shattering were still scarce. The public at large appears to only know that Marika disappeared after the event, her exact involvement only shared within the royalty and Two Fingers inner circles. To most, like the spirit watching the mausoleum in the Weeping Peninsula, she is still their eternal queen. For many of the rest, however, she became a terrible sinner deserving of punishment. No one even tries to argue in Marika's defense. Her actions were unambiguously selfish and short-sighted. Whatever love she once had for her kith and kin was lost to madness and turned to loathing at the order she created. Only Ymir recognizes that such madness characterized the god's entire reign. But the broken Two Fingers would never admit blame for putting an Empyrean on this path, so priestesses remain slavishly devoted to them, foisting all fault on their god. Malekith has taken the incident especially hard. We can confirm that he still has no idea why Marika broke the Elden Ring with his dying breath, a question which plagues him even as Garink. Talking to him earlier at the Beast Temple, the Shadow Vassal wonders if he is just too foolish to understand or if she actually deceived him as he evidently suspects. The description to his recollection does confirm it as a betrayal, and for good reason. Malekith understandably thought that he knew Marika better than anyone. He was her obedient little brother, standing by her in both her most painful and monstrous moments. After everything he witnessed her sacrifice for the Golden Order, time and again, what sense was there in throwing it all away? He became her tool, sealing destined death to secure her Golden Order in perpetuity, and she just flippantly stomped over all his efforts? Was there no love for a vassal, for a sibling? Her lack of consideration surely cut deeper than any black sword. At the same time, Malekith seems to feel at least partially responsible for Marika's sin. After feeding him all the death root, he reluctantly recognizes that traces of death are yet missing, pieces he will never retrieve. For him, that means no redemption for his sin of failing to protect the rune of death from stealers. It is the harsh realization that, once broken, something can never truly be restored, there will always be cracks. That immediately brings to mind Marika, the beast priest pondering if he now understands the full weight of sin she inflicted. His voice filled with rage and sorrow, the beast laments how the Golden Order will never again return, as more explicitly reiterated by one of his dying words. We may surmise that Malekith linked Marika's sin to his own, which isn't without reason. Where was the Shadow Beast when Marika decided that she would shatter the Elden Ring? Had he been there, shadowing her for his duty, then Radagon wouldn't have been forced to stop the mad god by his lonesome.
I think another of his dying words would be better. Because we mentioned dying words earlier. So I think it'd just be worth to highlight that this is like an alternate. Yeah. Forgive me, Marika, the golden regulation will never return, no? Yeah. Marika's this sin? Will it never return again, no? Yeah. There we go. Alright, so...
Where was the Shadow Beast when Marika decided that she would shatter the Elden Ring? Had he been there, shadowing her for his duty, then Radagon wouldn't have been forced to stop the mad god by his lonesome. The fact that he was a non-factor in this seminal event implies that he had either stayed away from the queen or been sent away, and why wouldn't he? Even after adjusting the rune's security accordingly, he had still failed to fulfill his duty as the seal, and that killed the souls of his Empyrean's children. Is it any wonder if he was too ashamed to remain by her side in mourning, or alternatively to disobey her forceful demand to get out of her sight? In neglecting his obligations as her brother and vassal, Malekith ended up neglecting his obligations as a shadow-bound beast. In that case, guilt over both sins is logical, his error having led to Godwyn's death, which led to her grave error in more ways than one. To his mind, if he can't atone for his, then neither can she have redemption for hers. Rather than blame her, the vassal chooses to bear the underlying burden of this tragedy. From this, Malekith's mission to gather the lost pieces of destined death is motivated by more than just personal guilt. He performs this thankless duty in a desperate bid to believe that it is still what Marika wants, hence why he proudly calls himself her Black Blade when forced to wield death again. The Beast Priest understands that we plan to use it to slay the Erdtree and end what is left of the Golden Order, meaning that everything his sister built will end with his death. He must continue to stand as the Rune of Death Steward, no matter the cost. Even if it means repeating old mistakes unleashing that power. It is almost delusional levels of denial, but that is what the Shadow Vassal wishes to imagine. The true answer to his question would be admitting to a terrible betrayal. Late into the night, the Wolfman goes outside to howl, not at a golden moon, but the tree, no better signal to this lunacy he embraces. But it matters not how much he wails to the heavens. Nothing he can do will repair his and hers relationship. The realm of shadow couldn't indulge such fantasies. Based on casual observations, soldiers have collected any of the Skagitry fragments they came across in the field and offered them to their idols of Marika back at camp. More have been amassed at the various churches dedicated to the goddess, perhaps even their ultimate destination when they can spare time from crusading. The Erdtree forces didn't retain them all, as seen with the Hornsent lying dead in the Templetown ruins or certain shadow pot carriers across the land. The splinters were curiosities regardless of religious significance to the residents. But for the Mesmer army, they were a means to appease their god queen. However, looking at how all the statues of Marika have been defaced, there has been dissent among the ranks. The Fort of Reprimand probably had many more traitors to discipline in recent years, with crusaders from all over turning against the Eternal Queen. The reason why is obvious. She betrayed them too. Indeed, even without updates from Leyndell about what transpired, it was easy for the Crusade to surmise that the Order was broken from the effects. That could only occur if either an outsider overthrew the entire Erdtree kingdom, a highly unlikely scenario, or an insider shattered it from within, and the only one capable of the latter was their divine sovereign. Rumor of this simple deduction was sure to spread quietly among the ranks, whispers breeding rebellion in countless hearts. The sentiment couldn't even escape the heart of the Crusade. Try as the Shadow Keep might to hide the text of wrath from afar in the rafters of the specimen storehouse, laying all by its lonesome on a gear in an obscure corner. The ulcerating tree spirits emerging in the church district are undeniable proof of the lasting damage done to the Skagitry and its baleful reaction. Scholars and clergy alike can see the truth. Plain as day, their god has forsaken the crusade and reduced their preservation of order to naught. That realization brought even the most devout within the Shadow Keep despair. As a result, a few abandoned prayer in favor of sorcery, devising spells like Mantle of Thorns and Impenetrable Thorns. As the names imply, they take cues from the Skagitry, rejecting everything beyond themselves with prickly harm. While the arts may rely on faith to cast like other thorn sorceries, the writings are decidedly works of observation, not incantation. In their despair, they look to the tree, forsaken like them, for guidance on how to react. Whether part of an informal collaboration between the clerics and researchers or their independent invention, both parties were involved going by the sorcery's location in the church district or specimen storehouse. We don't see anyone actually cast these sorceries, however, so any sorcerers were likely culled from the ranks as with the other turncoats. Still, that wouldn't solve the underlying despair, which reaches to the highest levels. For all the mantra he recites, Creline seems to feel insecure about their mother, Marika. When the Fire Knight is defeated during his second invasion at the Church of the Crusade, he begs the goddess not to abandon him, as if fearing her idol there is actually watching his performance. If he wins, he just as proudly proclaims victory to her instead. Creline has staked his everything on Marika's favor, which is now in doubt with the Golden Order broken. Visiting the man curled upon the floor of a side chapel in the Shadow Keep's main church afterward, he can only weakly beseech her not to rob him of Golden Grace's light after everything he did to ease her worries. Magnifying his fears with an iris of Oculus, he wonders why she has robbed them of light like the filth they crusade against for besmirching her honor. Creline may claim that those lacking gold can't escape from Mesmer's flame, but it is ultimately he who can't escape the doubts burning at the back of his mind. All that time following her guidance of grace has proven futile, and there is only much even Fire Knights can lose themselves in denial. In fairness, their leader has helped the Order maintain a level head through this crisis. Mesmer, in fact, appears to maintain the crusade out of spite, making it clear before our boss battle that he intends to abide by his duty from her even if it is now opposite her wants. He too has sacrificed everything for devotion to the goddess and her Golden Order, yet she would so easily toss it aside. The cost has sunk far too low for him to accept that. And so, he remains loyal to her through everything, protecting her last undefaced statue behind him in his throne room until death. Only when defeated do his true feelings get fully exposed in a single curse toward the woman who brought him into this world. The loving embrace he so desperately wanted to feel again was a hollow wish. After everything that has happened, Marika can no longer muster a care for her children. If their fate was to die anyway, then better they all die together. And whether her blood was truly never meant to live, she will get her wish soon enough.
There we go, and then we can go to the shattering there. All right, so first draft, pretty good. Xavier mentioned one point that would definitely be worth bringing up, but overall, I think that's sounding pretty solid. I'm actually really happy with that. Considering it was such a pain to get like stuff like that Malekith thing weaved in there, I think it came out really swell. There we go. It's amazing what a few drafts will do to anything. All right. There we go. A little bit of drafting, just a little bit. Great analysis. Yeah, I'm very happy with this one. Happy with the name now. Order's Breaking, I think, really captures it, helps it distinguish it from the Shattering, but makes it something that's really easy to, you know, identify what it is and you know, accurately surmise it. I'm really happy with the cosmology stuff. You there, Nobre? You hear that? You got your cosmology. Actually talked about some of the cosmology stuff we got with our third iteration of the Hollows. Did you goon to Melania? No, I do not goon to Melania. I'm sorry to say. There we go. Oh. Ah. Oh. There we go. I'm dead. Hey. Hey, is it fair to goon to Fia now? We're both dead people, right? All right. So that covers all that on the battlefield there. We already have all the shots, of course, for the Godric stuff already, so we don't have to worry about that. Take you off always stealth because I think this will work. Now this. There we go. Slow it down. There we go. No, about there. There we go. I don't like that. The stupid bush. Leave it to the goddamn bush. That guy's not having a good day. That thing looks like it's going through his head right now. All right, that looks good. All right, so I think I'm okay with that. All right. Okay. Oh, must have been the wind. Anyway, back to always stealth. We only need the one shot. So that's gonna be good stuff to include for shattering for the, you know, kind of the... Oh! What do they call it? The post-op? The post-mortem? Post-mortem? Yeah, post-mortem. There we go. Actually, do I want to mention it here? I might actually want to save it for... Yeah, I might want to save it for Tarnish. It depends on what I'm going to talk about the giant pit. You know, what am I going to talk about, you know, the whole half of the city is missing thing. I don't think it'll go in Shattering. I think it's better for Tarnish, but I'm gonna have to think that one over. It's such an awkward little event. Maybe one day I'll find stuff that's like really super relevant for it. It'll be like, ah, yes, of course, and then I can talk about it all and like it's one thing. But as is, it's one thing where it's like, oh yeah, that happened. All right. I need more. Okay, Nobre. Okay, I will give you your more cosmology on Elden Ring. I'm sure soon. To be fair, Farum Azula is a... I don't know if it's necessarily cosmology, but like it does touch on a lot of things regarding like the early history and stuff like that. So I feel like we're getting very close. Nox also kinda starts going there. I think the problem is like it's really hard to talk about a lot of, you know, the cosmology stuff with my current knowledge base. But it's one of those weird things where like I kind of have to force myself to start knowing more, for the sake of talking about some of that history base as I'm starting to hit the saturation point there, right? Because I have a better grasp. Obviously, the Godfrey era was the big thing I focused on for the longest time. Now that that's basically covered, except for Mesmer stuff, and let's be honest, none of us want to go through the Mesmer stuff because it all make no lick of sense when we have to put it into actual historical basis, man. It's random bullshit go moment. And then in terms of the actual Radigan stuff, relatively short and simple, but there's a lot. It's very dense, so it's worth it's a worthy achievement to get through. And now as I'm starting to go through a lot of the demigods and covering the Shattering itself as just a general overview with Morgott and stuff like that, I'm starting to do outlines for the other demigods and kind of organizing me oh, this goes here, this goes there, that goes there, right? I'm putting a lot of that stuff into place, and now it's ooh. So, really, a lot of my questions really are stuff that fundamentally have to do with the cosmology now. Like I said earlier with Miquella, it's probably should actually kind of look into, what does it mean for Miquella to be all about abundance versus rot? What does that really mean? Does it relate to gold? Is it a separate thing from gold? What exactly would that thing be? How exactly does that manifest? Why was it just that he was cursed to be young? Did he have other aspects that was cursed? Where does Trina, of course, come in, and the whole stuff with the death that he there's a lot there. By the way, if I managed to release my DS2 mod I've been working on for a long time. Oh my god, Nobre, that's awesome. I want to play it. So, yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to do it recently, because especially with how the Pupper's been doing. But yeah, when we have a good opportunity where I've got nothing else I really need to do, we need to just get that mod up there, and I need to play it. God, I've been waiting for you to come out with that, so I'm excited to see it. You'll never hear me say that about anything involving DS2 ever. So enjoy it, chat. This stuff is related to death and stuff like that. This we already talked about a Godric. I don't remember if we talked about the pots in Godric, though. I have to double check that. That we might want to mention. That or the Death Prince stuff, yeah. Yeah, because Prince of Death is going to... Yeah, Prince of Death is going to come up before we go into Shattering, right? So we'll go Orders Breaking, good old Death Prince, and then Shattering, and then we go into the various demigods. I think the order we have it with Godric and Radahn is pretty good. The only question is where Rykard will fall. Is Rykard going to be are we going to talk about Rykard before all of them, or is Rykard going to be anything? There's a lot of questions there. Oh no, actually Tarnish has to go. Tarnish has to go before we talk about the individual demigods. So it should go, yeah, it should go, Orders Breaking, Death Prince, Shattering, / Morgott, of course. Then, the Tarnish stuff, so we can establish all that. Then I can talk about the demigods, including Rykard, because Rykard stuff, eventually we have to talk about, the Tarnish hunts and stuff, at least in general. And, in general, it gets really weird when you're talking about both Rykard and Godric and how they hunt Tarnish and stuff like that, but you haven't talked about the Tarnish in their return yet, so yeah, that has to happen. And then we can talk about all the demigods and their full histories from start to all the way to the present day with the Tarnish. So that's the logical way to organize that. And then we also have Farum Azula and Eternal Cities and Astrologers and a lot of that stuff in the background. Okay. For a second, I was like, Morgott, you forgot to manifest. Man, you're not manifesting. You gotta be manifesting. We want to mention the flowers. There we go. I want to include that for sure in Shattering. I don't remember mentioning that. I probably use that to expand on it. Like I said, I might move some of the stuff out of Godric and Godofah on the details of the second defensive lane Dell. Maybe it's in Radahn instead, but I might take some of those details out of those articles and move it into Shattering just to kind of give some context. I'm going to probably keep Force Defensive Langdale as is. I stay as is very vague beyond the Kristoff stuff, right? And the general idea that, oh, it occurs, the monument is found way outside of Langdale versus this, because obviously the second defensive Langdale is the more relevant for the actual Shattering. So that's going to be its own thing. We don't see many soldiers here besides that one conscript that I guess Morgott ordered. You gotta stay in place in case I need to make an entrance at any point. Yes. Altus Plateau is here. Over here. Oh, for a second I thought that was a corpse that was stabbed in. I'm like, wait a sec, you guys are infighting? What? Okay, we gotta redo that. All right, I don't think I need to listen to the analysis again. I think we've got it covers it pretty well. And how long was this thing again? I think it's like 15-ish pages, right? Yeah, it's not even 15. It's not even really, it's not even 14 really. It's really 13. Yeah, so it's relatively short, which is fine. Again, I don't think we missed anything important regarding Marika and Radigan's stuff. BGM fucks, by the way. Yeah, I really like this. This is for the one of the recent albums that came out. This is a Rin and Len song, right? Oh, sorry. Yeah, for the Fantasic album. Really enjoyed that. This one is called Closed Castle. All right, so there we go. I think we got that covered, that covered. Ooh. Perfumer's Grotto we have covered. Oh, let me pick up those runes while I am so it doesn't... Hope I didn't take any shots with those things visible in the background. Knowing me, I did. Ah, I just cut. There we go. All right. So we go over here. We're gonna keep this here and move the lighting around now. I think this is good. All right, now for this. Yeah, it was looking like it was stabbed right through you, man. Yeah, we already have one from behind these guys. Nah. If we just focus on these three. This could work. Let's see. All right. And these guys are just up, right? Like they're just doing their thing. Oh, they actually ambush. Okay. Fascinating. This is one of the things I like by going through like each individual little like soldier spawn and stuff like that to see the different setups and things. Because again, you can clearly see like, you know, some guys like trying to chill, other guys very clearly trying to chill because they're exhausted. Then over here you have guys that are still there. They're still they're kind of chilling, but you know, they're doing it at least with purpose for ambushes and stuff. So I think all of that really helps you kind of be able to be like, you know, getting a sense of what everything's kind of going on with our good pal Morgott and his army. I actually really like that. I think about there's a good. There we go. So we have that all covered. No, we don't want the dildo in the shot. All right, let's get to this. Yeah, I think that's fair. There we go. By the way, did you guys see a new dot hack got announced? I am so excited for that. I absolutely would adore playing a new dot hack. Especially if it's gonna be what it looks like, it's gonna be a reboot to the franchise, which is like, oh my god. Like dot hack, original dot hack is so good, but like there's so much more they can do to improve upon it now. With, you know, just how much has changed in both, you know, culture and history and things with the internet and online and technology. Like there's a lot more now to kind of like factor in and kind of assimilate to revise sort of like the concepts of dot hack and where the world has gone and is going, right? There we go. Yeah, I think it's a good one. There we go, something like that. Can't say I'm familiar. How would you describe it? The simple version to say, like the very like Cliff Notes would be like, think of Think of like the OG SAO or Sword Art Online for those that may not be familiar with the acronym. Like think of it being like kind of like it was like exploring the key concept of Sword Art Online, this idea of like what happens if you got trapped inside a virtual world or a game or something like that. And what does that really mean? What does that tell you about the technology? What's like the life with VR and all that stuff? Like just in general, it was a very more thoughtful and I think just well-crafted RPG series. There's a lot of stuff about it that was incredibly dated, don't get me wrong. It's definitely something that could use an update, I think. But there's also just a lot of stuff about it that it's just like, it's just so good. It's so good. And I would love to see like a more modern take on the franchise nowadays. It looks like that might be what we're getting. The trailer was really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think, from what I understand, the new title is going to be Dot Hack 0, which is like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, going back to 0. Wouldn't be the first time I've heard something like that from Japanese devs, or the naming conventions, at least. That's cool. I think I might like, yeah, I think I might like it better when we don't have yeah, without much of the minor trees in the way. That's cool. All right, so you have to check it out. Yeah, I think one of the problems that like a lot of the games is just that you just can't really get them and play them, right? That's just, I think, really the problem. Availability is a bit of an issue. I would like them to be more accessible. You know, it's kind of like the same situation Trails was in for the longest time, right? But now, like, you know, Falcom is trying to fix that, and it looks like CyberConnect 2 is looking to fix that now with Dot Hack. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing this. Yeah. There we go. I saw a randomizer put Pinwheel in the Centipede Demons arena and turn him into a badass. That's a really interesting idea. Like Pinwheel in a lava-filled cavern filled with illusions that I assume could spawn anywhere in that lava-filled cavern, and they could shoot. They could all shoot fire from you at basically any angle in that room. Yeah, I'll be honest. And if they, I don't know if they would buff up the. Actually, I don't think you even need to buff up the HP and stuff, because I think just the size of the arena would make it a very much more difficult fight. Just having to run around and try to find the real Pinwheel, right? So, yeah, I actually like that idea. Also, just hearing the name Sword Art Online still frustrates me after all this time. It had so much potential. Well, try Dot Hack. Maybe it'll, maybe you'll find that it meets that potential that you're craving. Just saying. Yeah, I don't blame people who aren't familiar. It's an oldie. It's not one that and it never really took off, right? Oh, it definitely has its place in the space, but there's a reason why Sword Art Online is more instantly recognizable, right? It just got more popular, right? It just got more popular, you know? All right. The pinwheel seemed to gravitate toward the solid land, but the real pinwheel can go on the lava just fine. He starts with like 2 clones already and is busting out 10 plus really early, and they're actually relentless. Yeah, I could see the potential there. Like, I could see that being a really fun boss fight that's worth having. Like, again, for those that don't know, I actually would prefer enemy bosses with like relatively low HP, but really like dynamic and like interesting mechanics and movesets and stuff. So like really the challenge is not so much, you know, the endurance run of the the repetition with the boss, where it's like, okay, I have to be able to dodge this same attack like 20 times before I can get the HP to 0, but something more like, you know, I have to make sure that I learn and dodge all their attacks, and that so I can get that like 1 2 3 5 whatever it is hits in to be able to like finish you off or whatever, right? Like, I like those types of fights. Obviously there's the idea of like, oh, realism, right? Because like you only get like 1 shot or so, right? Like, of course there's obviously that case, but like it's really more so just the fact that I find the slow, tanky, spongy type of bosses just really boring. Like, they're just not for me, you know? I would prefer something like Pinwheel with his relatively low HP, but like his really interesting mechanic of like something clones and stuff and trying to get you at different angles and having you to have to find the real one and stuff like that. And putting that in a larger arena, I'm like, ooh, there's potential there, because you actually have to kind of go around and consider, you know, it kind of like Fool's Idol, but obviously there's lava, so it's a lot more dangerous than Fool's Idol was, where she just, you know, she played the floor is lava game with you, but it wasn't that bad, all things considered. SAO is more like a wish fulfillment fanfic. Dot Hack is actual story told in a video game series that Bamcon writes. Yeah, I think one of the problems that SAO has is like, obviously SAO is made by someone who does clearly, especially when you look at some of his other works like Axel World and things like that. This is someone who obviously who played games, who likes games, who understands it, but he didn't really try to write a story about games, right? Like the idea of like Kirito being part of like this giant MMO space, and yet he's like supposed to be the super great crazy player, but he only plays by himself. It's like, really, you have a game that's designed for multiple people, and yet the idea is you have this one person who does it. Like, that's very kind of wish fulfilling, right? Like, that's something where you're like, oh yeah, you know, it's theoretically possible, maybe, kinda, sorta. It's like, well, at some point it's a numbers game, right? And they kind of try to hand wave it because, you know, it's got the VR aspect and stuff like that, so there's a little bit more of the idea of, well, you know, it's like the real world freedom or whatever. But it's like, well, if you're kind of balancing it around kind of that, then that kind of takes away, like, you know, kind of like the game balance of it. So like there's a lot of problems, I think, with just kind of like the premise there, and I think that kind of extenuates out. But like you said, it was something that was very obviously designed to serve as like a wish fulfillment shown in fantasy, and that's fine or what have you, right? There's a lot of stuff I've actually liked in SAO and stuff like that, but overall I've never thought it was more than okay. There was a lot of potential, I feel, when it came to the, what was it, the Alicization arc, I think it was called. It's been a while. I saw a lot of potential there, and I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it's one of those arcs that I feel like I really like the first half of it a lot more than I like the second half. And even some of the first half stuff, there's a few things I'd like to tweak that. Yeah, Log Horizon does better when it comes to the actual gaming side of things, right? It feels a lot more methodical. I think the problem with Log Horizon is that it's also a little bit less, it's a little bit more boring. Like, it's definitely a slow burn. There's a lot of things to like about it, but it's also something where I feel like, yeah, you definitely could like kind of improve. You could definitely improve some aspects of it for sure. Fuck realism. Real life isn't fun. Well, yeah. Again, there's this is sort of the the point I'm trying to make, is that like when it comes to like, you know, creating like an MMO game where you're supposed to play like each together and stuff like that, I feel like even if you're trying to insert VR in it, the developers would still want to kind of design it in a way where like you can't just solo and be like this super elite like uber max player who like, because you got into like the alpha testing or whatever like that, or QA or whatever it was. Like, it's just one of those things that I feel like it's something where it's very clearly was designed not for the integrity of the setting. It was something designed for the fulfillment of the audience, right? Like, this is something where it's like, okay, we know, I know what the audience I'm trying to cultivate here, and I'm trying to give them what they want, right? And again, nothing against anyone making the you know, the story for whatever audience they want or what have you. It's just something where it's like, well, it's a shame you couldn't find a way to maybe attract that audience with something that still maintained the integrity of the world building and stuff like that, right? Like, again, obviously I'm a guy who's dedicated a lot to Souls games, so I actually really like and care about world building and things like that, and how you tell your narrative in a larger world. So yeah. Mm-hmm. There we go. Anyway, I'm super excited about the new dot hack. I am looking forward. I'm looking forward to playing it. I have always been a huge fan of how CyberConnect 2 have done their cell shaded games over the years and stuff like that, and how especially how they've developed themselves in the action space, you know. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they apply all that here. I think they can come up with something real special. I don't think we need shots of this because I think I already have shots for Godric, but again, I'll try to keep an open mind because I may have to come back here if I move that stuff into the Shattering. Oh, you're talking about something else. Oh, sorry, Nick. Sorry, gaze. Dominula. Is there anything here? No, the only stuff relevant would be for Death Prince, and we're nowhere even close that I want to focus on good old Godwinny. Good old Winnie. Winnie the Poo-Poo. And this... Let's go here. All right, there we are. Let's look at this over here. Jeez, chat, you know how nice it is to know that the dog is just being calm? No, the pupper is, there we go. That the pupper is, like, reliably just gonna not, like, bark up a storm. I am so not ready for when this ends. I'm not ready for when the other shoe drops on this one. There we go. There we go. All right, let's see. Let's go over here. Yeah, we don't need to worry about that here. I guess these could be Godric nobles. You were saving for Mikola. I think I turned back earlier. Am I crazy? No, I guess you guys are the same ones for sure, yeah. Okay. None over here. I think I have shots of these camps already. I'm gonna have to double check before I do more on this. Uh-huh. Yeah, that looks good. I like that. There we go. All right, I think that covers that. So that's cool. We have a lot of shots there. Yeah, a little bit higher, a little bit more there. I like that. Okay. So a lot of that. Obviously we have the guys over here. We don't have to worry about encampments over there. There we go. Have that covered. Don't have to worry about brightness. And this goes back to where we were at the start with these guys. So this one's covered there. I do find it funny how they seem to have put like the soldiers with the knight on horseback, but the guy on horseback goes so much faster than them. I feel like that was an oversight. It'd be funny if there was one really badass foot soldier who still can't get a promotion because of height discrimination. Yeah, they just like really buff up his stats for this one guy, so he's got like quadruple the HP and like attack power and defense too. Why not? Yeah, that would be funny. Again, like I said, I think I have shots of the camps already. I definitely know I have shots of this stuff here. All right, so eventually you guys got to turn around, right? Yeah. Eventually you guys turn around. Man, it would be actually a lot of fun to actually get shots of getting shots of these guys as like B-roll in the future. His legs are twice as large as the standard model to compensate. Looks like that. The sky is very obviously still day. A little bit of that like early morning fog. There we go. There we go. All right, there we are. All right, so like I said, I'm pretty sure we already have plenty of shots of like this guy standing over, overseeing and all that. If we need more, I'll do it in the future. Maybe I'll just want to get this for whenever I talk about these guys in general. Not a lot of other opportunities to get like a look at them in brightness, right? Maybe something like this. There we go. There we go. I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed. My man's got no face under the hood. Do Scar Scholars have stones embedded into them or just onto their clothes? It's hard to tell because like you can definitely see like just clothes here for sure, right? And they don't look like they have it on the model. But we don't get really a sense of their full body and stuff. And obviously the face is missing. So if they have any personal crystallization, it isn't obvious. I feel like the safe bet would be to say they just find little traces of glintstone that they decide that they're going to attach here. Kind of like how they have these rocks as like their little jewelry. I think that makes the most sense. Because the idea seems to be they're more so obsessed with gravity stones than exposing themselves to a lot of traditional glintstone. So... I already have shots of this. I know there's no soldiers there. It's just the Misbegotten in that corner, which is fine. All right. There we go. Now this one we can be a lot more... We don't have to worry about a skybox or anything, so we can be a lot more creative here. Yeah, I actually like all the shadows here. There we go. Yeah, there, that'll work too. I wonder if the post intentionally resembling Golden Order totality. I think it's coincidence, right? It's just the idea of like praise, you know, and you know, arms extended out, you know, like you've seen this a million times in a bunch of things, right? In films and things like that, being like, ah, yes, the god has been resurrected. You know, they extend out their arms, they raise their head to the heavens, and being like, yes, you know, announcing it to the world and all that stuff. Like, it's a, you know, it's a very common shorthand for jubilation, you know. I would not pay it that much mind. I think if the idea was to resemble Golden Order totality, it would be much more clearly like, oh, you know, you're trying to do Golden Order totality, right? We already got these guys covered. They're not relevant here. We got these guys covered in Godric. They're not relevant here. I'm pretty sure there's nothing. Isn't there a corpse here somewhere? Maybe I might be forgetting something, but yeah, I might be forgetting something. All right. All right, let's move over here. I'm really curious, how many ruins have a bunch of trees growing just in the middle of them like this? I've never really considered that. Because obviously the idea would generally be if you have entire forests growing inside of your ruins, then you've been gone an extra long time, right? I wonder how common that is, or if it's just like, you know, the devs are just kind of adding flavor here. Like, let's compare. Oh, we can't go to there, but what's another good neutral example? Oh, Demi-Human Forest Ruins would be a good one. Because that one should theoretically be relatively recent, right? I can't believe that worked. So you got a little bit of bushes and stuff here. This isn't really inside, you know, like this one you can, this one's a bit borderline. Really, it's a smaller tree here. That one's a bit bigger for this one there on the entrance. This one I think is more clear cut, like inside. You have like a smaller tree here, okay, so that's not that crazy. Yeah, most of them stay around outside. Oh my god. I can't do it. I can't do it on ×5 speed. Double jumping with torrent on ×5 speed is just so... It's so jank. Oh my god. It's okay, guys. I will ×5 speed my way up here somehow. There we go. See, this one, you definitely got like a few more trees and stuff growing in there. So it is definitely a thing. Oh, this will actually be another good one. Loki, what's your favorite episode of the 1964 Hanna-Barbera classic Magilla Gorilla Show? I never really watched a lot of Hanna-Barbera. I know it's going to sound crazy, but I never really watched a lot of them. Definitely bushes and stuff. A little bit of the smaller trees. Yeah, not too much for this area though. Though again, these are fields. You wouldn't expect that much anyway. Moving over there. This area's got fallen trees and stuff, that's for sure. So there's definitely the idea like trees were growing and were here before the poison, well, screwed all that up. Again, little like bushes and leaves, like that's reasonable if we're talking about like 5-ish years between like say some of these events and now. Yeah, I don't know how fast like stuff like you know, conifers can grow, so I don't know how reasonable it is to believe that you could have all these like large trees growing inside ruins, or if we would have to assume that like Waypoint ruins might be a good example of this. Good, half of them sucked. Let's see. Yeah, I don't remember there being a lot of trees when it came to these ruins. This is pretty reasonable, you know. You definitely have some overgrowth, but not like a lot. Front. Let me go here. Oh, for a second, I thought it was like on top of the stone there. I'm like, how does that work? No, okay. Yeah, so a little bit in here for sure. Mostly clear though in this area. Again, this is technically also an active camp. Do we count that one? Like it's kinda in there. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell. So it's very obvious, like they weren't thinking about like, you know, oh, this would be this building, this would be that. They were just kind of trying to create interesting little zones or whatever. So some of the walls and stuff, they kind of just like bleed into each other without making much sense. A little smaller one there. This one's basically outside though. This one I'm not gonna bother too much because all dragon burnt and all that stuff. I do think I vaguely recall us finding some trees hilariously within some clear like ruined areas. Oh, Mistwood would actually be a really good one because it'd be very comparable considering, you know, it's in a forest. Let's move it over here. Move it there. Yeah, some trees inside here for sure. I like this one especially. Sure I don't pick that. Yeah, that one's pretty hard to justify. Yeah, like you look at this, you know, like there's barely any separation between the forest and the human civilization here, and that tree is one of the big reasons. Like you remove that tree, you could definitely make more of a case, right? Yeah, okay. So I think it's not worth, you know, I don't think it's not worth being a factor. Forsaken. Well, obviously most of these you're not going to worry about because most of the trees are dead. High Road Cave, dead. There, burn. Right, we purified. Purified, I'm pretty sure doesn't have any, or at least not any significant. All I would expect to have quite a number. I know Zamora has spirit trees and stuff around there, but those don't really count. Yeah, this area's got a lot of growth to it. Yeah, so actually, Gillette trees though really standing out. Like, no, this one doesn't, of course. And this one's a big one. Yeah, a big old conifer. Uh-huh. Okay, so not that crazy, all things considered. No, don't care about you. We obviously have that one. Rife Blood. I actually want to double check, but I'm pretty sure Rife Blood has none. There we go. No, Bounties won't be useful there because all the trees are spirit trees stuff. That's not really helpful there. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. You basically got the blood roses and that's it. This one bleeds in a bit. Same with this one, but like, yeah. This area is pretty clear. Caelid again. Caelid doesn't really count with all the stuff there. Mountaintops don't really count. So yeah, that pretty much covers that. Yeah, I don't think it's a worthwhile factor really. We just get a general idea that time has definitely passed. I'm not sure we can really use it to narrow down. You know. All right, so what is the last thing we would want? Because there's nothing down here. We got that we need. Again, this is all Gelmir. Maybe there might be some soldiers up this path. I don't remember. That might be worth. Oh, there's also the ones by the ancient dragon stuff. Like, I think up the path, I remember there's some guys bedugging around, right? So. Yeah, there you go. There we go. Ah, now we want to. There we go. I'm happy with that. There we go. There we go. Oh yeah, even darker. I love that. I love it. Doesn't look as blue. Yeah, just make it really got a lot of orange and dark grays there. I like it. All right, so we got all of that covered. Pretty happy there. Oh, there are no, but that's gonna be for Death Prince. Yeah, I'm saving it for Death Prince. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, one or two trees here, yeah. A lot more respectful, though, overall. Like, you definitely are able to kind of get a sense of this is civilization. Ah, this one's definitely pushing it. Get that one here. But even then, it's still, you know, they're keeping it close, but, you know, when it's a dense forest, it's not the craziest idea that, you know, they would keep a lot of the trees standing. All right, especially if they're all, you know, filthy tree huggers, minor tree huggers especially. Look what that got you, you bunch of tree huggers. So as I recall, we have our soldiers here. Yeah, that's good. No. There's something there too. Oh, didn't get in there. There we go. Arg. Maybe this one has potential. Oh, they're fighting me. Whoops. Whoops. I did not think this through! Ba ba ba. My man was doing his little dance. He was like, oh yeah, I beat a soldier of Langdell. I'm the best. I'm the best. Oh yeah. Ow. They really need to fix. Can someone give me an Elden Ring mod that just switches the stupid voice lines between the falling voice line and the getting damage voice line? They never fixed it for this one. It's so obvious that's the I'm falling down a long distance, right? It's so stupid whenever I have to listen to it. What? Minor trees, you know, very important. Hide your, what do you call it? Hide your saplings. Hide your, I don't know, pollinators. I don't know how it works with trees, man. I don't know what the words are. You got all these wood folk here wanting to hug your miners. All right, let's see. This is good. Yeah, nothing else here with these soldiers and stuff. Sad to think there won't be another single player from offering on the horizon for a long time, and as someone against Nintendo's current business practices, Dustblood isn't in the cards. Yeah, I am someone who is if I take any interest in the story and stuff of Dustbloods, it's going to be very much like Demon Souls, where I will be doing it purely as a non-player, because I just am not in a position that I want to get myself an entire Nintendo console to play one From game that, I'll be honest, isn't quite what I'm looking for anyway. Like, again, I'm happy with Night Rain. Like, it's cool, it's fun enough and all that stuff. Like, I enjoy it. I would prefer if From goes back to making, you know, the single player games that I enjoy. Again, I'm sure they'll do a great job too, but I feel like, you know, the trend of, you know, online, especially the live service thing, I think it's been pushed to its limit. And I worry that Dustbloods is basically going to be sent out to die into a dying trend. Again, maybe Miyazaki will buck the trends and make it where he will revitalize it in the genre, you know, much like how ended up Souls becoming its own genre or whatever, right? Maybe he's just the guy you need for your online action co-op death brawl, like whatever direction they're going for with Dust Bloods type of game. But you know, I will not be part of that wave. I will not be one of the players, most likely. All right, so all that's covered. That's covered. I don't remember there being any soldiers exactly. Actually, no, weren't there some foot soldiers that were looking at the second church from afar? I vaguely recall that being a thing, so. So you have the nobles here. Let's see. Let's look over here. Oh, sorry about that, chat. I had an itch suddenly. I'm like, what the hell was that from? I guess I'm crazy. I thought there were like foot soldiers or something watching this from afar, but either I don't remember their exact location or what. Okay, now let's go for the Ancient Dragon stuff. Have you seen what Discord's been up to? Yeah, I have seen it. I'm not sure what the game plan will be on my end. It depends on exactly how this is getting implemented or whatever. But yeah, I might end up thinking of you know, having to close the server and go somewhere else. Or at the very least maybe like kind of be like, okay, like we're gonna like have this like abandoned or whatever for the time being. But yeah, I'm not a fan, that's for sure. I will say that. A little early. There we go. That's good enough, I think. Let's see. Let's see. Is over here? I forget. There's like... Oh, there's... Oh, no. I think it's the one by the highway, right? Yeah. Right, okay. I think I actually know exactly what I want to do here. All right, and then we play with the shadows and stuff here. Yeah, this is definitely red meat for anyone who is a Discord alternative that really wants, like, you definitely get some very easy attention and activity from people. There we go. Like that too. There we go. That's a good one too. I really like. Yeah, we definitely want something that's like. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm pretty sure we have shots of the different banners and stuff. I have to include that in Shattering. I almost forgot that. If I recall, they are set up. Yeah, they're all set up in lands firmly controlled by Morgott. Yeah, and they extend all the way. Oh, I just realized they're a lot smaller. They get a lot smaller inside Capital Outskirts. That's interesting. I never thought about it, but yeah, they're a lot smaller here. All right, so we have foot soldiers chilling there. All that, yeah. All right, so that I think covers basically all the little vignettes in regarding Altus in general that we would want for the Shattering stuff. All the stuff telling us about what Morgoth's forces and things have been doing. That again are not relevant to other articles first and foremost. I'm trying to think if there are really notable ones in Lingdell I haven't already grabbed. I know I got the ones in the alleyway with the knights before. That one's obviously the Guardians. That guy's just an ambusher, not even worth it. Obviously we have the conscripted commoners struggling and stuff. Oh, sorry, chat. This stream has gone on pretty decently long though, so I'm gonna be very happy to end things soon. If there's anything really notable, it would be up here, I'm pretty sure. Wait. All right. We have the strays already noted. I forget. It's not just... No, yeah, it's also in the pagan quarter, yeah. Good old Eastern Ward. They also have the stray dogs. This I'm not worried about. Guy's like, dude, I don't want to mess with that. It's like, dude, you're gonna get caught. Yeah, eventually Night Boy's gotta go back. Give him one more check. You check out that symbol. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess. All right. Yeah, they don't give you a lot of time. Yeah, okay, I think we're good. I like that. All right. Yeah, I like this angle better. I think I already have a shot of these guys with the cup and stuff, so I don't know if another one's really gonna matter. Whatever, we'll get the shot anyway. All right, so where should I be looking for the symbol again, just so we don't go wasting our time looking around for things? Where exactly should I be going? It is something I can easily find. Where is... Yeah, you guys are good. Unless there's something in the alleys I'm missing. No. I'll get another shot of these guys. There we go. Yeah. Something like this. Yeah. Yeah. There we go. All right. And then, yeah, only at the entrance of Anir Alim, by the path where we spawn after burning the seal at Rao, and later at the entrance of the Divine Gate. Okay, so those two specific spots. All right, those should be easy enough to get to, because I'm pretty sure... I guess I already got shots for this one. right, there we go. I forgot what item is on this guy here. I don't think Nardi is done. I don't think Nardi's taken a look at Langdell yet, unfortunately. Oh, I like that though. All right. Nah. No, this one will do. There we go. I think I like that. There we go. Yeah, we don't want my glorious chest hairs getting in the way. Well, God help us if that happens. All right. Yeah, I think that covers it for the soldiers. Anything I'd want to get that's unique. There we go. All right. I think I might like this one better. I think the high contrast on the shadows and his bright gold armor just looks nicer that way. Okay, we don't have access to it here, so we have to go to my other character. So let's first look at Divine Gate, because that one should be the that one should be the easiest one to look at. All right, so something like this, right? So the question is it actually unique, right? Because theoretically, it might appear elsewhere and just wasn't found, or it could also appear at like maybe some of the town ruins as well. It might be just hard to spot. Oh boy. Mm-hmm. Not seeing it, that's for sure. Dead Letta. Sad face. Wife is dead. Has to find new wife. Look at all this ash. Yeah. Yeah, they're not using it here either. There's something about that architecture that's like tickling me as something familiar, and I just can't put my finger on it. Like, I'm like, where have I seen that before? Ah, yes, classic. The clergy worshiping themselves. All right, there we go. So much sand. Yes. Sand. We have so much sand here. Don't we, chat? All this beautiful, lovely sand that is helping fertilize these trees. Ignore the faces. Ignore the oh, good. Ignore the faces. It's all beautiful sand. Beautiful, beautiful sand that is being filtered through the entire temple facility for obvious reasons, because you always grow your trees in sand. I mean, we all know that's what Miyazaki was building up. He showed us all this sand and how it's being used to go for trees. And he made sure that as we ascend or whatever, and we see more and more of this sand, and not wonder what it is, because why would you ever wonder what sand is? Especially this nice, bright, you could almost say golden sand. As it rains down everywhere. Surely you would not be wondering what exactly this is, and there wouldn't be some answer to be found as we reach some climactic point in the story at the top. Wow. Just made it bigger, huh? I'm starting to think that the Hornsent may be a little bit narcissistic, especially in their religion. I might just think the priesthood think of themselves a little too highly, you know? Yeah, it's not being used here either. Oh. It's okay, I didn't want to live anyway. Loki, where is the sand cosmology? Look, here's your sand cosmology. I wonder if the idea with how it becomes white up here is like it's been purified by like the light of like godhood or divinity or whatever from the gate. Or if it's just the idea like, you know, it kind of petrifies or something. Like it's like this showing like how it's died and, you know. Let's go over to the front staircase. It's the ultimate standard. I love the idea, you know, like obviously like it's mostly for effect. It's not really like quote unquote realistic or anything like that. But I do like the idea that you have like people like being burned in Ballarat and stuff, literally climbing up the burning remains of the tower, begging for salvation, right? As it all collapses and stuff under them. There is something really powerful about that kind of like horrific visual as everyone's being killed and dying and they're in their almost literally an ivory tower, you know? Oh, this is not what I wanted. Sure, first rise, why not? Uh-huh. I'm not seeing it here either. Very basic stuff. But if I understand correctly, that will change when we go out here. So far, just a lot of ash and burning from Mesmer. Wow, you guys, weren't you guys lucky? Perfectly avoided you, huh? Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember seeing doorways like this in the area. Am I crazy? I don't think there are actual doorways like this around here. Do we see doorways like this in the tower? There we go. Of course, horn lines. I feel like I've probably taken a shot of this in the past. It seems like something I would take a shot of as soon as I come to this area. Yeah, there's the symbol right here. The guy just slapped it here on the corner. There's not really an area quite like it here. Like, they could have used one of these. This probably would have been fine. Maybe they thought it was too plain? Alright. I know there are doors like that in Ballarat. Okay, so Ballarat definitely has something like that. Alright, so that door would be under the bridge here. Good to know. So it'll be right there. Now, I know they had something planned for this. So this is obviously going to connect. Probably there was an idea that this would also have connected up here. Maybe the idea would be this doorway connects to this tower. Either way, yeah. Chat, I've gone on for quite a bit. I'm not seeing anything else here immediately relevant. There's also something very ironic about the idea that the horn scent would go under like some type of ritual purification thing where they seem to essentially burn off their horns to become like enlightened Buddha type figures, right? And then they end up getting actually, you know, quote unquote purified. You know, they go through an actual hellish purgatory through Mesmer's flame. I can see the narrative irony building. Whew. Maybe just for inside the walls. Yeah, I can see that door being just for the inside the walls. Yeah, then we have this one too. Fortunately, we lost all of this section. We have the two giant trees here. Like, geez, how much sand does it take to make them grow this big? Tree, you're huge. Yeah, I'm not seeing it at all. The site's also on the outside of the entrance. I assume you mean the entrance down here. But I think we are getting to the point where I would like us to end. Oh well, you know, I thought that huh. Huh. The more you know, you know? The more you know. Let's see. It's kind of here. I wonder if it's inside any of the others. Oh. I'm not seeing it. No, where you were, where the random door was. Ah, I see. I find this more interesting that you can find it here. Yeah, you can also see it here. And then it's the regular stuff there. Oh. The monster is awake. Yeah, I think I need to take her out one last time, make sure that she's all good. Oh, there she is. She's laying in her bed behind me. Oh, cute. You are so adorable when you're quiet, Sonny. Outside the entrance, you said. Oh, I see it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I see it here. Yeah, it's still here. All right, so it's not as exclusive. We do see it's being used, at least in part, in different areas. Like, it seems very consistent when they're using these, for example. So yeah, interesting. I'm not sure how relevant it is. But it's definitely something where you look at that and you're like, oh, that kind of reminds me of the Elden Ring. You know, obviously you got the like circle thing, but then you got like some of the lines and the way it stretches down like that. I guess it could also be like the tower. Like this would be like the towering figure, and then there's like a halo to it at the top. Either way, it is time that I end things here and focus on on other stuff. Especially tonight, I gotta sleep, chat. I need to have as good a sleep as I can get with her. All right. We accomplished a lot today. I'm very happy. Very, very much a happy camper. All right. Later, chaps. Be safe. Love y'all.